Well, hello everybody. This is Veronica Robbins, the Grant Goddess, and I'd like to welcome you to this week's Tip from the Grant Goddess. Our topic today is writing a great budget narrative for your grant. And I don't mean just a good budget narrative, but I'm talking about a great budget narrative, the kind that will give your readers a reason to fund you. Now, as you know, these video tips from the Grant Goddess are really quick. We try to get in and out of here in less than 2 to 3 minutes. So we're just going to move ahead really quickly. But before we do, I want to remind you to take a few moments and go to grantgoddess.com. That's our main website, and you will find all sorts of other tips there, as well as links to the virtual tips we have all over the web. We've got videos, podcasts, articles, all sorts of information for you on how to supercharge your grant writing. So please do yourself a favor and take a few minutes to check it out. So let's get started now and quickly get through our topic for today, writing a great budget narrative for your grant. So, everybody who's listened to me or read anything I've written knows that my very first tip is always to follow the instructions. If there are particular requirements that are put in the RFP, that's request for proposals, about what should be in the budget narrative, follow those. If there are any page limitations, be sure to adhere to those. However, one of the wonderful things about the budget narrative is that there are rarely page limitations for it. However, sometimes there are. So if there are, you need to pay attention to those. Next, provide detail about calculations. How specifically did you get to the numbers that you put in the budget for each line item? Now, that's the reason for the budget narrative, by the way. They want you to explain how you got to the numbers and then thoroughly explain those expenditures. So don't leave out the detail of the calculations, which means the math. If it's 5 staff members traveling to a conference at a cost of $200 per staff member, then you need to put that in. Then you need to explain how that $200 breaks down, how much of it is travel expense, hotel expense, registration expense, or whatever it is. So you really need to provide the detail, and don't forget to provide the detail about calculation of fringe benefits for staff. Next, thoroughly explain the budget expenditures. Explain how that expenditure relates to the project design, why it's important. Remember, if you don't have a page limitation, there is no reason to skimp on the expenditure and your explanation of it. This is your opportunity to show how all the pieces come together. The next one is my very favorite tip for budget narratives. Cite the objective that is addressed by each item. And if you have an item like the project director that addresses all of the objectives, then say that it addresses all objectives, or objectives 1 through 6, if you have 6 objectives, or however you want to do it. This illustrates for the reader that you really have taken the time to make sure that each and every budget expenditure is directly linked to the project design and to your outcomes. Now, if you're trying to do this and you find that you have something that is not linked to one of your objectives, then it needs to be taken out of your budget. Or you need to add a project objective and build it into the narrative. But remember, there has to be a clear link, and the best way to make sure that the readers understand that link is for you to cite the objective. Finally, use the budget narrative as an opportunity to discuss the reasonableness of the budget. Sometimes you'll be doing this within the main project narrative of your proposal, but the budget narrative is also a great opportunity for you to give the per client costs, for you to talk about where you're saving money, where you're getting a discount from a vendor because you've worked with them for a long time, or because you're buying it at cost for some reason, or you have a board member that's getting you something cheaper. This is an opportunity to show them that you're really watching those pennies, making sure that everything is carefully spent and accounted for. So, these are my top tips for writing a great budget narrative, and if you follow them, you'll find that your budget narrative is stronger than those who are competing against you. If you want more tips, remember, head over to grantgoddess.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at grantgoddess. And we've got a couple different Facebook pages. The first is the Creative Resources and Research page, but we just started the Grant Goddess page on Facebook, which is where we're putting electronic resources. So if you're interested in that, go ahead, head on over to Facebook and become a fan of Grant Goddess. Thank you very much, and I look forward to sharing with you next week. We'll have another tip from the Grant Goddess. Take care.